A Melbourne man insured his brand new Tesla for about $1,400 a year. 2 years later, 10 of Australia's biggest insurers, including Budget Direct, Coles and Woolworths, refused to cover it. In Victoria, a Toyota Land Cruiser can be stolen in under 2 minutes without anyone touching the key. But here's the one that should worry you most. If your car was ever touched by floodwater, even after a full repair, it can be banned from comprehensive insurance for life, no matter who buys it. These are 7 cars and categories of cars that Australian insurers have quietly stopped wanting. Number 7. The brand new Chinese arrivals nobody has claims data on yet. Halfway through 2026, China overtook Japan as Australia's biggest source of new vehicles. 175,151 cars against 144,430, according to the federal government's own VFACTS sales figures. Add Tesla and Polestar to that column, and Chinese-built vehicles made up almost 40% of everything delivered to Australian driveways in June alone. Brands that did not exist here 5 years ago, Zeekr, Jakku, Deepal, Geely, Leapmotor, are now selling in the thousands every month. And the growth curves are genuinely strange to look at. Bide is up 120% year on year. Sherry is up 84%. Zeekr sales are up over 1,100%. Jakku is up more than 2,000%. 4 Chinese brands now sit in the national top 10, something that had simply never happened before this year, while Toyota, Nissan, Subaru, and Mitsubishi are all posting double-digit sales declines over the exact same period. The federal government's incoming fuel efficiency rules are only going to push more buyers toward these badges, not fewer. Here's the part the showroom brochure will not mention. An insurer prices a car using its claims history. How often that specific model crashes, how often it gets stolen, and what a smash repairer charges to fix one damaged panel. The same unglamorous spreadsheet math that has decided car insurance premiums for 100 years, just applied to a badge that's barely old enough to vote. A model that landed here 18 months ago has none of that history behind it yet. No claims data, and often no local parts warehouse either. Just a panel shop waiting on a shipping container from the other side of the world. In the United Kingdom, that exact gap has already pushed a major insurer. LV equals General Insurance to flatly decline quotes on newer Chinese models like the Xpeng G6 and the Bide CLU while it works out the risk properly. G2M, a brand plenty of Australians already recognise from its dual-cab utes, admitted the same problem publicly overseas, telling reporters that customers there are currently hitting restricted insurance options while it works with parts teams in Europe and China to fix the supply chain. There's no reason to think an unfamiliar brand lands any softer with an Australian underwriter than it does with a British one. Australia is not far behind that curve. Compare the Market ran the numbers across 12 local insurers and found electric vehicles running anywhere from 7 to 97% more expensive to insure than an equivalent petrol car in the same segment. The gap between a Toyota Corolla and a Bide Atto 3 alone came out at more than $563 a year for 2 cars that would otherwise sit in the exact same showroom price bracket. And that's the established Bide, not one of the newer names still finding its feet here. There's a second layer underneath the parts shortage that almost nobody outside a smash repair shop ever hears about. Australian insurance works on the idea that damage gets repaired to an approved manufacturer standard, which means the repairer needs the manufacturer's own technical documents to do the job properly. For a lot of these newer Chinese models, that repair information simply doesn't exist in English yet, because the domestic Chinese market never needed it translated. One British repairer put it bluntly, describing cars being written off for damage that would fly straight through a body shop if the badge said Ford or Toyota instead, purely because nobody could find the paperwork to sign off the fix. Number 6. Anything modified without a phone call to your insurer first. Budget Direct puts this about as bluntly as any insurer ever puts anything, in writing, on its own website. If it's illegal on the road, it's uninsurable. That line covers the obvious stuff. A straight pipe exhaust that fails noise compliance. A suspension drop that sits below the legal ride height. A catalytic converter pulled out entirely to save a few kilos before a track day. But the bigger trap in this category catches people who never actually broke a single road law in their life. Every mainstream insurer in this country requires you to disclose modifications, and that rule covers the perfectly legal ones too. A bigger turbo, a stiffer clutch, aftermarket wheels a size up from factory, a tune uploaded through the OB port on a Sunday afternoon that would never show up in a visual inspection at renewal time. What counts as a modification is broader than most owners assume. Anything that leaves the car in a different state to how it rolled out of the factory, cosmetic or mechanical, visible or hidden under the carpet. Leave any of it off the form and you haven't necessarily broken any road law at all. You've just handed your insurer a clean reason to deny the claim later, even in cases where the modification had nothing whatsoever to do with the crash. It doesn't always go that way, and that's actually part of what makes this so risky. Plenty of owners will tell you the opposite story. A modified car that sailed through a claim without a second glance because the assessor never dug that deep, or simply didn't care once the paint colour and the badge matched the policy on file. One S15 Silvia owner online described exactly that. An accident processed as routine even though he'd quietly left the bigger turbo. The cams and the ECU tune off his declaration and only listed the parts you could see. That inconsistency is the whole problem in one story. You're betting on which version of that phone call you get, and the only owners who never have to find out are the ones who disclosed everything up front. The frustrating part is how easy this entire category is to avoid. A whole specialist industry exists purely to cover performance and project cars. Agreed value policies that price your modifications in rather than treating them as a liability to be managed away. That path genuinely works, but only if you actually pick up the phone and tell someone what's sitting under the bonnet. Every mainstream policy in this country is written on the assumption that your car still matches its factory compliance plate exactly, and the moment it doesn't, the burden of proof sits entirely with you, not with them. Number 5. Anything on the high-powered list if you're still riding around on your Ps. New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria and South Australia all run some version of the same rule. Anything with a power-to-weight ratio over 130 kilowatts per tonne is off limits to provisional drivers, full stop, regardless of what any insurer thinks about it separately. News actually defines it even more broadly than the raw number, banning anything with what it calls a significant engine modification too. And that ban follows a P-plater across state lines, even if the neighbouring state's own rules are looser. The actual banned list published by these road authorities reads like a bucket list for a certain kind of car enthusiast. A 1993 Nissan Skyline G-Tates T, a 1976 Holden Torana SS, a 1967 Ford Mustang, a turbocharged BMW 1 Series from 2010, even a 2020 Mazda MX-5 GT trips the exact same power-to-weight formula, sitting right next to a completely unassuming 2002 Holden Berliner sedan on the same banned list. Get caught behind the wheel of any of them on P-plates, and you're looking at fines and demerit points before an insurer has even entered the conversation. Here's where it actually gets worse for anyone under 25. In the handful of states without a legal ban, Western Australia, the Northern Territory, Tasmania and the Act, Plenty of insurers apply their own private age cutoff, on top of whatever the law technically allows, effectively rewriting the state's own road rules through the insurance contract instead of the statute book. They'll quote a 45-year-old for a high-performance car without blinking, and then decline the exact same car for a 22-year-old with a spotless license and 0 at-fault claims, purely because the accident statistics on young drivers in powerful cars are that lopsided nationally. There is technically a workaround in some states, a hardship exemption if you can prove you genuinely need a specific high-powered vehicle for work. In practice, nobody is getting a Ford Mustang GT signed off for a delivery run. So for almost every P-plater, the exemption exists on paper and nowhere else. Even the 130 kilowatt rule itself isn't as simple as it sounds. In Queensland and South Australia, it only applies cleanly to vehicles built from 2010 onward. So an older car gets judged on a completely different set of criteria, which means two cars with near identical power figures can land on opposite sides of the same list, depending purely on the year stamped on the compliance plate. So you end up with two separate blacklists stacked directly on top of each other, one written into state road law and one written into an underwriting spreadsheet that nobody outside the insurance industry ever sees. Insurers rarely publish the second list, but brokers who deal with young drivers every day will tell you the same handful of names come up on quote after quote. The same Skylines, the same DuRX STIs, the same V8 Commodores, regardless of which state the caller is ringing in from. Between the two of them, a huge slice of the most desirable performance cars in the country are functionally off the table for an entire generation of new drivers, whether or not they could even legally register one in the first place. If you're finding this rundown useful, do us a favour and hit subscribe, because we cover exactly this kind of overlooked Australian car news every week. The stuff that never makes it into the glossy new car launch articles and never gets a mention at the dealership when you're signing the paperwork. Now, back to the list, because number 4 is where things get properly personal for anyone who grew up wanting a Skyline poster on the bedroom wall. Number 4. Grey Import JDM Legends. The cars that made a lot of this channel's audience fall in love with cars in the first place. Once a Nissan Skyline, a Toyota Chaser or a Sora clears the 25-year import rule under the specialist and enthusiast vehicle scheme and lands on genuine Australian compliance plates, plenty of new owners assume the hard part is already behind them. It isn't. Forum thread after forum thread tells the exact same story. An owner rings around the household names, gets bounced from one call centre to the next, and hears some version of the same answer every time. One Skyline owner posted about the exact experience after trying two well-known Australian insurers back-to-back for an R33, saying neither company seemed willing to touch a privately imported car at all, and that he'd never had this much trouble insuring anything before. The reason sits in the paperwork rather than in the car itself. A grey import often carries a compliance history that mainstream underwriting software was simply never built to recognise. No local sales data to price the risk against. A VIN format the system rejects on the very first attempt, sometimes forcing a call centre operator to manually pad the number just to make an online form accept it. Sometimes even a speedometer retrofitted from kilometres back onto a car that was originally built for a market with completely different rules. Mainstream insurers price risk off patents they already have on file, and an import with no local patent behind it does not fit that model at all. So the easiest answer for whoever is on the other end of the phone is simply no, next caller. It's a strange kind of penalty for a car that's often better looked after than the equivalent Australian delivered model sitting one row over on the same dealer lot, purely because the software has never seen its paperwork before. The fix exists, and it has grown into an entire specialist industry built around exactly this gap. Agreed value insurers, who work specifically with JDM and classic imports. Names enthusiasts already know. The kind of underwriter who understands precisely what a genuine R33 GTR Nismo or an immaculate Sora is actually worth, and will put that number in writing before you ever need to make a claim. It works, but it means an R32 owner in Brisbane is shopping in a completely different insurance market to the person next door in a Corolla. And discovering that gap is usually the very first lesson of owning a grey import, right after the shipping container clears the docks and the car finally lands on Australian soil. American muscle imports run into a cousin of the same problem, just from the other direction. A left-hand drive Mustang or Camaro brought in privately has to go through a full right-hand drive conversion and an engineer's compliance sign-off before it ever gets a plate. And until an insurer can see that entire paper trail sitting in one file, most will not even generate a quote. The car itself might be mechanically stock and completely unremarkable. It's the missing local history, not the engine, that keeps setting off the same warning flag every single time. Even a factory right-hand drive JDM car that skipped the compliance workshop step entirely, brought in privately rather than through a registered importer, can sit in exactly the same limbo, technically registered, practically uninsurable, until someone puts in the paperwork to prove it is what it says it is. Number 3. The Toyota that thieves can steal faster than you can read this sentence out loud. Victoria Police say a Land Cruiser stolen through electronic tampering went from 89 vehicles 3 years ago to 241 the year after that, to 846 in the most recent 12 months. And that jump has nothing to do with careless owners leaving a spare key in the ignition. Thieves are getting in through the wiring behind a headlight or tail light, tapping directly into the car's internal network and driving away without ever touching a physical key at all. Toyota's own Hilux, Prado and RAV4 sit on the exact same target list, right alongside older favourites like the Holden Commodore and the Subaru Impreza. Police in Victoria seized around 800 key cloning or key reprogramming devices from offenders in a single year, which gives you a sense of just how industrialised this has become. And Queensland recorded a 101% rise in vehicle theft across the 10 years to 2025, the steepest climb of any state before Victoria overtook it. The insurance numbers tell the rest of the story on their own. Victoria alone recorded $243 million in vehicle theft claims in 2025, according to the Insurance Council of Australia, up from $173 million the year before that, and just $46 million the year before that one. A five-fold jump inside 2 years for one state alone. The ICA's own chief executive, Andrew Hall, put the scale of it in terms anyone can picture. A car is stolen or broken into every 42 minutes in that state alone. Every other state in the country saw theft claims fall over the exact same 12 months, some by as much as 15%. Victoria is the entire reason the national theft figure went up at all in 2025, and theft claim frequency in that one state alone jumped 31%, while it dropped everywhere else. Toyota has responded with hardware-level security updates on the newest Land Cruisers, Prados and Hiluxes, specifically designed to block this kind of network attack, factory-approved secondary immobilizers for existing owners to retrofit, a priority replacement scheme that moves theft victims ahead of the standard waiting list, and a genuine steel steering wheel lock sold as an accessory for about $200. The company is even lobbying the federal government directly for a ban on the electronic theft devices, making all of this possible in the first place. And it's running a joint task force with Victoria and Queensland Police to study exactly how the thieves are getting in. Number 2. The Tesla owner who got told no by 10 different insurance companies in a row. Paul Marrick who now runs the car review site Care Expert, bought his Tesla Model 3 in November 2019 and insured it for just over $1,400 a year, with an agreed value of $96,800. That felt entirely reasonable at the time, cheaper even than the Toyota Supra he insured right alongside it, a car that had cost him $10,000 more to buy in the first place. By the following year, his original insurer had gone out of business entirely, and when he went shopping for a replacement, Allianz came back with a quote of $9,000. Not a typo, $9,000 for comprehensive cover on a car worth less than his own Supra. He eventually settled with Army, and even that policy climbed past $2,000 a year, while the insured value of his own car kept dropping underneath him at the same time, from $96,800 down to $74,000, as though the car were aging in dog years. Along the way, he tried a long list of household name insurers looking for anything cheaper. Budget Direct, Woolworths, Coles, Kogan, Bingle, Geo Bupa, MyState, Huddle, all 10 said no. Not a higher price, an outright refusal to write the policy at all. The Insurance Council of Australia's own explanation for this reads like a checklist of everything currently wrong with insuring an EV in this country. Expensive electronic parts, components that have to be shipped in from overseas, a genuine shortage of qualified EV repairers, meaning a damaged car sometimes has to travel interstate just to reach someone certified to touch it, specialist handling and disposal requirements for a damaged battery pack. That last one is the real killer. A battery pack alone can run past $20,000 to replace, often close to half the total value of the car, which is exactly why an insurer would rather write the entire vehicle off after what looks like a fender bender than pay to repair it properly. Matthew Avery, research director at Thatcham Research, summed up the irony of it well when he pointed out that an EV isn't very sustainable if the whole point is to throw the battery away after a minor collision. It's worth saying plainly, EV batteries themselves are not the fire hazard some of this coverage makes them sound like. EV FireSafe, the group Australian fire services actually rely on to track this, has confirmed only a small number of battery fires nationwide since records began, and none of them happened while the car was plugged in and charging. The insurance problem isn't really about danger, it's about accounting. A car that's cheaper to declare a total loss than to responsibly repair. And that math applies whether the vehicle has ever caught fire or not. Things have shifted a little since Marrick's original ordeal. A handful of insurers now specifically market themselves toward EV owners, bundling in cover for home wall chargers and cables, and offering a brand new replacement car if an EV is written off within its first 2 years. That's real progress, and it's worth shopping toward if you're buying electric. But the underlying arithmetic hasn't gone anywhere. A pack that costs $15,000 to $30,000 to replace still turns a fender bender into a total loss far more often than a comparable petrol engine ever would. And that single fact is still shaping every quote an EV owner gets in this country. And now, the one category that beats every brand, every model, and every excuse on this entire list combined. Number 1. Any car that has ever been touched by floodwater, whether you knew about it or not. After the 2022 floods across southeast Queensland and eastern New South Wales, almost 20,000 motor vehicle insurance claims landed on assessors' desks within a matter of weeks. And industry groups later admitted more vehicles than usual got written off simply because there weren't enough skilled repairers left to work on them properly. Auctioneers ended up running entire sale days of nothing but flood-affected cars. Some barely touched, some barely recognisable, and every single one of them carrying a different level of risk that the winning bidder had to work out for themselves. Here's where it turns permanent. In Australia, if water reaches the level of your car's inner door sill, that vehicle can be classified as statutory write-off. It cannot be repaired and legally sold as a driving car again. It cannot be re-registered anywhere in the country under any name. And that status follows it for the rest of its existence. A repairable write-off is a lesser version of the same outcome, allowed back on the road after inspection in some states, but permanently flagged the moment anyone runs a check on the National Written-Off Vehicle Register. And a repairable write-off cleared in one state isn't automatically accepted as roadworthy the moment it crosses into another. The part that should worry every single buyer, not just flood victims, is how well a flooded car can hide. The damage that actually costs you doesn't always show on the outside. Electrical faults from a soaked wiring loom can take 3 to 6 months to surface after the sale, long after the cooling off period is closed and the seller has already spent your money. Industry inspectors have described finding the real evidence somewhere as ordinary as the glove box, a mud tide mark left behind on an otherwise immaculately detailed interior that the seller either missed or hoped you would. This is the one blacklist on this entire list that has nothing to do with the badge on the bonnet. A Toyota Corolla and a brand new Ferrari get exactly the same treatment if the water got high enough underneath them. The record follows the car through every single owner after you, whether that next buyer ever hears it from you directly or has to dig it up themselves before they hand over a deposit. Every flood season adds another few thousand cars to that register, whether the owner ever finds out or not. 7 very different cars, 7 completely different reasons. A brand new Chinese SUV, a stolen Land Cruiser, a written-off Tesla, a flooded sedan nobody disclosed, and underneath every single one of them sits the same lesson. Insurers in this country aren't really looking at the paint job or the badge on the bonnet. They're looking at data, at registers, at claims histories that follow a vehicle long after you've stopped thinking about it. And the moment that data turns against a car, no amount of loyalty or love for it changes the answer on the other end of the phone. The one thing every owner on this list had in common wasn't a bad car. It was finding out where their car sat on one of these lists after they'd already signed for it, not before. A 5-minute check before you buy, a written-off vehicle search, a straight question to an insurer about a modification costs nothing next to what it saves the owner who skips it.